Hello, everyone, and welcome to And There You Go, a podcast about life. Whether you're hanging from a cliff by one hand or laughing your ass off, we'll cover it all. And now your co-hosts, Addie and Chad.
Hey.
Hey, what?
Great interpretive dancing.
You like that as we were coming in. Yeah. Again, this is an audio
I realize
medium,
that.
not a visual medium.
I was going to explain it.
Oh, well,
As
please.
the music came on,
Please do.
Chad did interpretive dancing to it.
I did.
I think to make me
I'm
laugh.
a trained professional.
Yeah, you are.
Well, something. So we're in the doldrums of the start, the cusp, the beginnings of what might be a long winter here, and we just went through daylight savings time, and I am kind of like down.
Mm-hmm.
You got something funny for me?
Well, I've got all sorts of funny things because I save them all the time.
And you send
know
them
I love
to me.
laugh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
I do send some to you, mostly dad jokes to you, not the other stuff.
You save the good stuff for you.
So there's a former Maytag repairman that makes news because his DNA test proved that he's fathered between 250 and 330 children.
Oh, my God.
You remember the whole Maytag repairman thing, right?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I can imagine that probably did happen.
Yeah, Santa Claus is going to be busy this
Yeah.
year for that family.
Well, he's going to go broke.
What do you do?
I know.
I mean, I know what he did, but I mean, what do you what do you do about it?
Oh, and then there's this guy who tried to rob a bank with a hot dog hidden in his pocket to look like a gun.
Really?
Uh-huh. It was in Los Angeles, but he forgot that he didn't have the gun, and he was going to kind of scare the teller a little bit,
Yeah.
and he pulled out the hot dog. So he was arrested.
So he was a real wiener.
Yeah.
Right. So our topic today is related to food,
Yes, it is.
confectionary kind,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got a story to kind of lead us into this. So, and this is a comical story too. I've heard a little bit about it before, but why don't you share that with us?
Well, it was way back when I was 5 years old in kindergarten. And back then, kindergarten was like half days. And it wasn't in the public schools. I actually went to a church for kindergarten.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah. And now it should be still half days, I think. As a teacher, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Because kids get too tired at that age. They can't last that long.
Good Lord, I get tired at my age.
I know.
I'd like to go half days.
Yeah. So anyway, I loved my teacher. She was the best. And it was a fun class. I was really quiet, though. And I just stuck to what I was told to do. And I was also an observer. So I saw things happening that not everybody necessarily saw right away.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this little boy in the class who struggled, probably because he needed a nap.
Probably. Or sugar.
Well, no, he did not need sugar. For absolutely sure, he didn't need that. It was like the upstairs brain and the downstairs brain weren't working together yet.
Oh, okay.
You know, and his little body would work faster than his brain would process things.
Yep.
And so he got in trouble quite a bit. And I think he was holding it against the teacher. And one day, the teacher did something you don't do when you teach kindergarten, which is turn your back. Ever. But she did. But I got to back up just a little bit and say that there was a little girl's birthday that day. And so her mother brought in these cupcakes. And they were put in the front on the table. And the kids were so excited about it. And she'd brought enough so that the teacher had one too. And everything got passed out. We all got a cupcake. And then there was a cupcake on the teacher's desk for her. And she turned her back. That's when she turned her back.
Okay.
Not a good plan. She turns around and puts her hands on her hips and says, "Who punched my cupcake?"
Oh, no. And I can only imagine who.
Yeah.
Certainly wasn't you.
No, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. In fact, he was so fast that I didn't even see him do it. But we all know who did it.
Yeah.
We all knew who did it.
Did he have like frosting on his knuckles? Was he sitting there licking his knuckles?
No, he was hiding his knuckles. So the teacher was very upset, and she'd had enough of his shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
And she took him out into the hall, and back then, teachers, parents, whomever would say, put your nose in the corner. And you'd have to stand there with your nose in the corner, which is horrible.
It is, yeah.
I mean, that's shaming.
I don't think
awful.
I've ever heard of that phrasing of that,
Oh,
but stand in
gosh.
the corner, yeah.
Yeah, back then, I guess I'm really old because it happened.
No comment.
And then, of course, the class was horrified as well. But she was standing there watching him with his nose in the corner with her hands on her hips. And so we were all creeping up to the door so that we could see him in the hall. And he was crying, and it was so sad. But I was sad for the teacher, too, because her cupcake was punched. And so...
Well, and that kind of, we kind of picked up on that phrase, who punched your cupcake?
Yeah.
And meaning that, you've got this expectation of something happening. And for some reason, that expectation is destroyed at the hands of somebody else or a situation. And so we've come to use that, like if I come home in a bad mood, you go, who punched your cupcake, Chad? And then I'll have to tell you the story of what led to that. But so I think it'd be fun if we went through and we shared some stories about when your cupcake got punched and I mean, for both of us, and not just you, I'm not going to single you out on this, but how we punched other people's cupcakes too, because we do it, whether intentional or not.
Sure. And getting your cupcake punched can just mean embarrassment as well by something that happened.
Right.
Like it deflates you.
Right. There's times when you can feel real cocky or, so sure of yourself or so full of yourself, and somebody does something that just kind of whoop, and there goes the deflation of the ego. Like the teacher, there was a disappointment there too. She had these expectations of participating in the fun, and being included like that,
Right.
and
like
having some sugar.
It's like getting sucker punched.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's funny too, though.
It absolutely can be funny.
But sometimes it's not so funny. So do you have any examples right off the top of your head?
Well, I just gave you one big example.
Oh, well, excuse me. Well, maybe I should take one.
Yeah.
Okay, so one time when I was young, I don't know why we're reminiscing here about our past, but I was probably in late grade school, early junior high. And back then, it was really cool to have beer can collections. And so my buddy and I would go all over the neighborhoods. And there were some wooded areas and different places where people would discard beer cans. And there were some that were really kind of creative, artistic type labeling on the cans. And so we'd go around and just scour everywhere we could to try to find beer cans. We both had beer can collections. And mine was in the garage. And it was, they were all stacked along the walls where there were the studs going up and down, so it's stacked nicely and neatly over there. And I was just, some of them, like Olympia, I remember was a brand that had like nature pictures and, different variations of special cans and things like that. So if you found something really cool, it was like a big prize. It wasn't that I was glorifying beer drinking by any means. It was just more of an art kind of thing. But something to do, something free that you could do. So I went out to the garage one day and I noticed my beer can collection, which was probably, well over 100 cans, was gone.
Oh, no.
And I looked around the garage and I couldn't find it anywhere. I couldn't find the cans anywhere. I thought, okay, maybe in a bag or something like that. I went and talked to my dad and said, Dad, what happened to my beer can collection? Well, I threw it out. And I was just incredulous because he threw out this hobby and this effort that I had put into finding these things. Yeah, granted, they're just beer cans, but
that's a lot of hours.
When you curate that kind of collection, and you spend those hours with your buddies and going out and looking for these things, and to have them summarily discarded without any kind of advanced warning on my father's part. It's like, God dang it, So right there, my cupcake got punched because I had this expectation that I was going to keep growing this can collection, and I never did go back and restart it.
Oh,
It was
that's too bad.
It was just gone.
Yeah.
So that's one example. Not so happy.
I can think of a time when I taught first grade, and when they're young like that, they're always wanting to know, how old are you? How old are you? And of course, I would never say how old I was. Instead, I'd ask a question back and say, how old do you think I am? And when they're little like that, you get anything from 5 to 120. They have no sense of that. And one little boy raised his hand and he said, I think you're 80.
80.
Okay, go on our website. I don't look 80.
No, not anymore.
What? Here's why. I said, why do you think, why do you think I look 80 years old? And he said, because you have bangs.
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 Apparently old people have bangs. I don't know. Kind of punched my cupcake. Burst my bubble.
Burst your bubble.
Yeah, because I looked 80, apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have bangs now? Or is that what you? Yeah.
I do have bangs.
You don't
right
look
now.
80.
Thank you.
Yeah, that kid was wrong.
Okay, good.
Summarily. So hopefully he grew out of that. So looking in my adulthood, there was a time when I got my cupcake punched big time. I worked for a large organization, a Fortune 500 company, and I worked in market research, doing market research for this organization within the marketing department. And I had done such a good job, and I worked really hard and built some really cool programs and executed some really, really rock-solid projects that had high visibility. And at the end of the year, I had my review, and I got, just a glowing praise, and I received a promotion, received a real hefty raise, and received a bonus, none of which I was expecting. And I thought, man, here we go. I'm on this track now, and it's just going to propel me even farther, along with my career and with this organization. And then about 4 months later, I get called into a conference room with a couple of other staffers, and my boss says, well, this isn't going to be a good day.
Oh.
Yeah.
Don't you hate that?
Yeah. And he said, we had to cut 50% of our department. There were about 80 people in the department, so 40 people got cut, and I was one of them. And so here I thought I had this career. I thought I was going to be there a long time. I loved the job. I really liked the company. I loved where things were going for me, and it was just yanked out for no other reason than budget cuts within the organization.
And I suppose it probably depended on how long you'd been there. Is that part of it?
Well, no, because there were newer people that were there. It was a financial thing. And, being a pragmatic business person that I was at the time, I understood, I got it, but it didn't feel good, right? It never feels good because, I obviously was of value to them going through my review process and all of the things that the rewards that I got for my performance. But then when it comes down to it, I'm really just nothing but a cog in the wheel, a number. And, you talked about, your ego getting deflated.
Yeah.
Well, that sucked the wind right out of me.
I'm sure.
So that was one that wasn't funny at all. So
Got your cupcake punch.
Big time.
Well, I have a story that's maybe a little bit TMI.
Okay.
But it's funny, I think, in a way. It wasn't funny at the time, and you're a guy, so you maybe won't understand this, but you'll get a visual. I went in for a mammogram.
Okay.
Mammograms are never fun.
I've heard that. Yeah.
They squeeze you. It's like the big squeeze. And they do it slowly. It's not fast so that you can get it over with. It's slow, and then they take pictures, and it's a little bit, squeeze a little more.
So
And they say, just let me know when. Like, how much of this agony can you take before you tell me when? Well, the first thing that they do is ask you, have you ever passed out? Have you ever fainted when you've been, gone in for a mammogram? When you're clamped in there. And I'm like, no, I've never fainted. And so we began the process. And I don't know if it was just because she had suggested it that this could happen or what. But the more I was squeezed, the more I felt like I was going to pass out. And they make you stand to do it. So you're holding on.
Are you kidding me?
I am not kidding you. They make you stand, and that you are holding on to these two bars while they squeeze the hell out of you. And she could tell I was getting pale, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Just take the picture. Take the picture. Take the picture."
were you just trying to be brave and strong?
Yes.
And it's like, I can do this. I can. Well, I was going to say I'm a man, but I can do this. I don't think a man could handle that.
No, neither can a man handle childbirth. Okay?
Well, we can't do it, so that's out of the question. So you're standing there.
Yeah. And she sees I'm pale, and she keeps asking me, "Are you going to be okay?" "Yes, take the picture. Take the picture. Just take it." And then I said, "I'm going to pass out." And so she unclamped me, and I fall down. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what if I would have passed out while I was still clamped up in that thing, and I would have been hanging there?
Okay, so a whole bunch of things are going through my mind. First off, the first thing that went through my mind was the Tarzan yell, "Oh!" as you're swinging there. The second thing is that it was more than your ego that got deflated.
Yes, it was.
They
Yes.
squished your biscuits.
Both of them.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
Yeah. So the next few years after that happened to me, they would bring a wheelchair that would lift up high enough.
Why didn't they do that the first time?
I don't know.
Why don't they do that all the time for everybody?
Right?
Good night, nurse.
So, everybody, now when you look at my picture, that's what you're going to visualize, right? Me hanging there.
But
my cupcake was punched, and my biscuits
were squished.
were squished.
And your ego deflated.
Exactly.
Oh boy. I just cringe thinking about
It's
that.
awful. Hey, you could think about other places that men could be checked where they might pass out and hang. So, another visual.
Kind of harkens back to that bank robber with the wiener.
I know.
Oh God. Oh man.
And there you go. TMI.
TMI, but funny, but very funny. So another one that I have is when I went to college, I was really intent on playing basketball there. I'm 6'5", and in high school I dominated. I played center. It was a small school and a small league. I played center and down in the paint, and I was really, really successful, and our team did really well that year. And I thought, okay, this is my thing. I had been recruited for football by other places, but I thought, no, basketball's my thing. I want to do that. So I get to school, and it's a small, not a small college, but it's not like a major university. It's not a D1 type thing.
It's a well-known college.
Oh, it is a well-known college, but I go out, and they obviously didn't recruit me, so that should have been one of my first clues. But I was just adamant because I was so good, and I could dunk the ball like nobody's business, and I was just really good, and I was real confident that I was going to really help this team out too. And so I walk on the court first day of practice, and there's the center standing there, and I look at him, and I walk over, and I'm stretching my neck and looking upward, and this dude is 7'2" compared to my 6'5", and in that instant, my cupcake was smashed to smithereens because I realized, oh crap, there's no way I'm going to compete, from a physical stature standpoint like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they ended up, and I did stay on the team, they ended up putting me at a forward. But the thing is, being a center my whole basketball career, basically, I never developed an outside shot. I didn't have real great ball handling skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was like, after a year, it's like, why bother? So deflated. Here I was, a little on the cocky side coming out of high school, and my expectations were pretty high. And, somebody popped that bubble. 7'2" dude.
Yikes.
Yep, he punched my cupcake.
So I've got another one. I had this college friend. I'm doing quotes because I don't know that a friend would really do this to you, but she was taking a psychology class, and she came home one day and was so just all about herself. And she opened her psychology book in front of me and she said, I did some reading in my psychology class. And she showed me that there was this list. There were two sides. There was one list of names and then another list of names. And it was names of people who tend to be attractive and names of people who are ugly. And my name was on the ugly side. I was on the ugly list. She could not wait to tell me that I was on the ugly list. And she couldn't wait to tell everybody else that I was on the ugly list. And I can laugh about it.
Why is there even a list like that? That just makes no sense.
Idea at all. I was a little speechless. And it really hurt my feelings at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I was pretty devastated because I was quiet, minded my own business.
Yeah.
Why was she picking on me? Why would she even say that?
Yeah.
Is something on my chin?
No, I had an itch on my chin.
Oh, you keep doing that with your chin. So I'm like, what's on my face? So
no, I'd be more obvious. I'd be going something like,
okay, whatever.
And of course, that's
It's
a visual
just
our
us.
listeners can't see, but
Anyway, that
Yeah.
that happened. She punched my cupcake, made me feel ugly. I don't know. She must have not felt very good about herself.
No, and a lot of times that's what behavior like that can be. So
Yeah.
I think getting more serious here now. One of the biggest times my cupcake was punched was when I found out that my partner at the time had been unfaithful to me.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about a massive wallop, that instant. And I know you've experienced that as well.
Yes.
And, to me, that's more than a cupcake getting punched. That's the demolition of the bakery.
Exactly.
And that obviously we've talked about some of that in other podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's talk about just taking the wind out of you.
Yeah, in one sentence, when it comes to that, my life changed forever. In one sentence, me and my kids, our lives changed forever.
Yeah.
And then he was sorry for it. I think he regretted it, and he was trying to do little things to get me back. So I punched his cupcake.
Well, and that's interesting because we are not clean. We are not pure when it comes to just getting our cupcakes punched.
No.
And by we, I mean everybody in the world punches somebody else's cupcake at some time, whether intentional or unintentional or even unknown to them sometimes too. Going back to college and somebody, learning something new. I've always been intrigued by this. People learn something new and they think, now they're enlightened and they share it with everybody. When I was in college, sat down for lunch in the cafeteria with a group of guys, and one guy was he was kind of an egotistical guy to start with, and he was in his philosophy class, and he said that he had just read that so-and-so philosopher said something to the effect that whatever the majority of the people think is generally wrong. And so I simply asked him, well, what if the majority of people believe what you just said?
Whoa.
And he goes, whoa, 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 whoa. I think he left the table. But I kind of punched his cupcake in doing that. So.
Yeah.
But there's
Well,
other times when I punched. I mean, I'm sure you have too.
I did.
So.
I was going to say,
okay.
I punched his cupcake after he,
Right.
in one sentence, he just uprooted me and the kids. And so he was sorry. And I think he was trying to get in good favor with me again, which would have never happened because there was infidelity, and that's that. But he called me up on a Thursday and just kind of acted like he wanted to visit, which I didn't really want to visit with him at all. And he says to me, well, what are your plans for this weekend? And there was this long silence, and I said, well, that would be none of your business. And he lost it. He said, I don't even know you anymore. And he's just carrying on. And I said, you never did.
Just shut him down cold.
Shut him down.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to happen.
He was expecting you to just give in to him or, give him what he wanted and shut him down.
That wasn't going to happen anymore. And I think that the smear campaign, we've talked about that.
Yeah.
And that happens, and it's happened to me. And I think that's my cupcake was punched that way because I honestly thought that the truth would just come out, but
Right.
I was not campaigning anything. I was just staying quiet.
Yep.
And it really punches your cupcake when you know the truth and other people believe the person's lies.
I've had that feeling. I know that feeling exactly.
Yeah, like your abused mind thinks, well, the truth is going to come out. They're going to know what he did or she
Right.
did or
Because
whatever.
it's the truth, and that's what.
Right.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't. No.
It doesn't come out usually.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, anytime you hold an expectation, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. That's something that I learned through years of therapy. Trying to find my way through, navigate the decision to get a divorce or not.
Mm-hmm.
And my therapist was really good about this, and she would say, don't attach yourself to outcomes, meaning don't have expectations. Put something out there and see what happens. Observe.
Mm-hmm.
And so, sometimes what I would do is what my therapist would call extend an olive branch. She said, Chad, you're extending that olive branch not to expect anything that's going to happen, because I was really good at that. I would try to say something or do something with the expectation that my partner at the time would react a certain way or do something or say something.
I was the same way.
Yeah. And so what she said is you don't attach yourself to that outcome. What you do is you can put that out there as an olive branch, and then you observe what happens. And so in that way, my cupcake was continuously getting punched because the response I got was not what I wanted or what I was expecting or what I was hoping for. And so, there's this detachment from outcomes that needs to happen when you get into some heavier expectations around things.
You know what I've done to detach myself too? Is that I don't call somebody my ex. I know most people do, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It's just that when I say that, I feel like I still have ownership
The word
of
my
that person
implies,
in some sort of way.
yes, the word my implies some connection. It's like my shirt.
Yeah.
It
just kind of punches me in my own gut. If I say that,
Ooh.
it feels icky. It feels yuck.
There you go, when you punch your own cupcake.
Yeah.
I've got a story about that, actually, that I
awesome.
can share. This was during my drinking time, and I don't mean between like 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. because
I'm sorry.
my drinking time was any time of the day. I will say that, and I joke about it, but it's a very serious thing.
Yeah.
No, but my story is around the first time that I went through treatment. I had gotten a DUI, and I went through outpatient treatment and got through the treatment, and I was sober for a year. And after years of drinking, to be sober for a year without any falter was amazing, it's a huge deal. And I came up to my year anniversary and even past that. And then I started to get cocky, and I started to rely too much on my ego. And I decided that the reality of me is that I'm just a normal drinker, or I can be a normal drinker, that I'm just, somebody who just got kind of caught up in this and it just got out of control. Now that it's under control, I can actually drink normally again. And so I had a beer.
Ooh.
I know. And my daughter actually caught that and said something about she didn't think that I should be drinking anything. And I just, dismissed it. She said that to my then wife, who said something to me. And I said, well, I can handle it. I had communion at
Communion?
yeah,
Oh, no.
at church. Yeah. It's
You're
like,
using church?
well, that's the thing. I accidentally, quote unquote, took the little cup of wine instead of the grape juice, which I had been doing for the year prior.
Mm-hmm.
So after that beer, I went downhill very quickly and really, really punched my cupcake because my ego got in my way. And as I examined that, as I explored that, I realized that there were two reasons. Well, one reason that I relapsed big time, and it just sent me into this spiral that was just horrible. But the reason was that after the year, I started getting cocky because I started to rely on myself and not my higher power. So I tried to take back control of my life.
But what was your higher
I know,
power?
and that's the deal. So when I got into treatment a number of years later, as I reflected back on that experience and why I relapsed, I realized that while I had been saying that my higher power was God, the universe, whatever variation of that kind of entity that you might think about, wasn't really my higher power at the time. What I realized was that when I got cocky after that year, it was timed exactly to the day when I got off of probation for my DUI. So my higher power at the time was my probation. And then I got cocky, and I didn't want to believe that I was alcoholic. I was playing the game for the year with myself. And so I screwed myself over. I punched my own cupcake.
Yeah.
In that scenario. So. And
we all do.
We
all get our cupcakes punched. We all have punched somebody else's cupcake.
Well, and in a way, when you have expectations about outcomes, you're setting yourself up to get your cupcake punched.
Yeah, well said.
In things that you can't control.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you have an example that you wanted to share? Because I have one too.
Oh, go.
Okay, so
go
along those lines of having these expectations that something is going to happen or not happen in a way that you expect to. That's why we call them expectations, I guess.
Yeah.
I had an open position. I was a supervisor at a place, and I had an open position, and there was an internal candidate who was in a role that was very similar to what I was hiring for. She came and she interviewed, and in the interview, she actually said, well, I know this job. I worked on your team before you got here. She said, I feel like a shoo-in. The thing is, what she didn't know was some things that I knew about her past work performance. Doing my due diligence for an internal person, I do ask around. Mm-hmm. And I had my own direct experience with how she operated and in the workplace. And I knew probably in advance of that interview that she wasn't going to be the person I would hire because of these certain things. And I followed through with the interview out of a professional courtesy, but also to see, to validate what I was thinking. And in the end, I ended up not hiring her, and she was absolutely livid. And I had burst her bubble. I punched her cupcake, but she was the one responsible for having that expectation.
Yeah, she kind of punched her own cupcake.
Right. Yeah. And even before she applied for the job, she had punched her own cupcake by past behaviors and performance issues that she had had. So, there's so many different ways cupcakes can get punched, literally, figuratively.
Yeah.
All of that. Did you have anything, any other additional?
I just have a quote.
Okay.
One of the hardest things to do is squaring the hatred I was subjected to with the idea that I am worthy of love. Everyone's worthy, punch, cupcakes, and all.
And there you go.